Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Remy stood in the low light of his penthouse apartment, the city skyline stretching beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a sparkling distraction from the weight on his chest. His hands trembled slightly as he poured himself a glass of water, the ice gently clinking against the glass. He wasn't thirsty, but he wanted something to do, anything to ground him before the words he'd been keeping hidden for years came out. Deke sat across the room, sprawled on the leather couch, his easy smile dimming as he noticed Remy's mood changing. The air between them was thick with unsaid questions, the kind that had persisted for months, if not years, as their friendship grew into something neither could quite describe. "Remy, are you okay, man?" Deke spoke casually, but his eyes were alert, searching Remy's face for signs. He leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, and his dark hair fell slightly into his eyes. Deke had always been the one to break the ice, to crack a joke or shift the subject when things grew heated. But Remy wasn't going to let him off so easily tonight. Remy placed the glass on the counter, untouched, and turned to face Deke. His throat felt tight, as if the words were trapped there, striving to remain hidden. He'd mentally rehearsed this moment 100 times, pacing his apartment late at night, poring at old images, piecing together shards of a truth he'd only half understood until recently. But no amount of practice could prepare him for the way Deke's gaze held him now, unwavering and searching, as if he could see straight through to Remy's secret, which he had kept since he was old enough to realize its significance. "I need to tell you something," Remy finally murmured, his voice low and almost lost in the noise of the city outside. He crossed the room and sat on the edge of the armchair, close enough to Deke to feel his warmth, but far enough away to maintain the space required to get through this. "It's about my father." Deke pinched his brow, but did not say anything. He'd heard vague rumors about Remy's family throughout the years, including a mother who worked too much and a father who was never around. But Remy had always been guarded about the specifics, dodging with a joke or a change of topic. Deke had let it go, expecting Remy to open up when he was ready. That time seems to have arrived. Remy drew a deep breath, his fingers curling together in his lap. "You know I never mention him. My dad. There is a reason for that. It's not simply because he wasn't present. It's complicated." He hesitated, looked at Deke, who nodded slightly, urging him to continue. "When I was a kid, my mother informed me that he departed before I was born. Said he wasn't ready to be a father because he had his own aspirations and life to live. I grew up believing he was a deadbeat, you know? Someone who didn't care enough to stick around." Deke's countenance softened. "That is rough, man. But you came out okay, didn't you? You didn't need him." Remy laughed bitterly and shook his head. "That is exactly what I believed as well. For a long time. But it isn't that simple." He stood quickly, taking a few paces before returning to Deke. "I discovered the truth when I was 16. My mother didn't tell me everything. She left out the most important part," Deke said, his eyes narrowing with inquiry and anxiety. "What do you mean?" Remy stopped pacing, his back to the window, the city lights casting sweeping shadows over the room. He felt exposed, as if the truth was stripping him naked, but there was no going back. "My father did not simply depart.
He didn't know about me."
Not at first. After discovering the truth, he attempted to return. But my mother wouldn't let him. She thought she was protecting me from someone she no longer trusted. Someone she believed would harm me." Deke leaned back, thinking. "So what? Your mother kept him away? That's heavy. Why didn't she tell you?" "She thought it was better for me to assume he didn't want me than to know the truth and risk being harmed later." Remy's voice shook, and he glanced away, swallowing hard. "However, it is not the worst part. The worst thing is who he is." Deke's silence was more powerful than any query. Remy could feel the weight of his friend's expectancy, the tension between them. He wanted to pause, rewind, and keep the secret hidden away so it couldn't impact things. But Deke deserved to know. They'd been through too much together, late evenings talking about everything and nothing, shared fantasies of fleeing the city, quiet moments when their hands brushed and neither pulled back. This fact was no longer solely Remy's. It was also Deke's. "He's your father," Remy murmured, the words rushing out before he could question them. "My dad, he's your dad, too." The room fell silent. Deke's face froze, his eyes wide, searching Remy's for any indication that this was a joke, a mistake, or anything other than the reality. But Remy's expression was raw and vulnerable, and Deke knew him well enough to believe what he saw. "What?" Deke's voice was barely audible, and his hands gripped the edge of the couch as if he needed something to hold him. "What are you saying, Remy?" "I'm saying we're brothers," Remy said calmly, despite his hammering heart. "Half-brothers. Same father, different mothers. I didn't know until I was 16, when I discovered some letters my mother had concealed. He wrote letters to her requesting to meet me. He mentioned you. He said he had another son, a few years younger than me. I didn't realize it until we met, when I saw you and began noticing things. The way you laugh and tilt your head while pondering. It's just like staring at him. Or what I suppose he'd be like." Deke shook his head and stood up, his motions jerky as if he was attempting to shrug off the words. "Remy, this is crazy. You're saying my dad, is your father?
How?
How does this even happen?" Remy ran his hand through his hair, the story irrepressible. "Your mother was with him first. They were married. But things went apart, my mother told me that. He met my mother later, while he was still trying to sort himself out.
It was not planned by me."
He didn't realize she was pregnant until after they split up, and by then, your mother had taken you and moved across the country. He tried to follow and make things right, but my mother did not want him around. She thought he was too unstable and caught up in his own problems to be my father. And by the time Dad found out about me, you had already been born, and he was trying to be there for you." Deke was now pacing, his fists clenched. "So, he gave up on you? Just like that?"
"No."
Remy's voice was sharp and defensive, but he didn't know who he was protecting. "He did not give up. He wrote to my mother for years, sending money whenever he could, and inquired about me. But she never informed me. She burnt the most of the letters, but I did find a handful. Enough to piece together. He wanted to get to know me, Deke." Deke paused and turned to face Remy, his eyes filled with a mix of fury and hurt. "Have you known this for years? You knew we were brothers, but didn't tell me?" Remy flinched, the accusation hitting him harder than he had anticipated. "I wasn't sure how to tell you. At first, I wasn't sure if it was true. And then, as we came closer, I didn't want to mess it up. You are my best friend, Deke. Sometimes it goes beyond that. I didn't want this to alter the situation." Deke's laugh was harsh and skeptical. "This affects everything, Remy. You're telling me we're family, but you've kept it from me."
"How should I feel about that?"
"I do not know." Remy's voice rose in fury. "I don't know how you're supposed to feel, since I'm not sure how I feel. I've been lugging this about for years, trying to figure out what it means and whether it's worth blowing apart our lives over. I didn't want to lose you." Deke's look softened slightly, but he did not speak. He crossed his arms and stared out at the city, his jaw hard. Remy watched him, his chest throbbing from the thought that he'd said too much and broken something beyond repair. However, he couldn't stop now. The truth was out, and he had more to say. "I found him," Remy explained quietly. "Several months ago. He currently lives in Chicago and works a dead-end job. I didn't tell him I knew you, but I did meet him. Only once. He isn't what I expected."
"He's broken, Deke."
"Life has not been kind to him. But he mentioned you. He said he thinks about you every day and wonders if you're okay." Deke's head sprang up, his eyes wet and ferocious. "Do not do that. Do not make me feel sorry for him. Remy, he left me too. Maybe not in the way he left you, but he wasn't present. He does not get to be the victim here." "I'm not suggesting he is a victim," Remy murmured, taking a step closer. "I'm simply saying he is human. He botched up. He recognizes it. And I think he'd want to know you if you'd let him." Deke shook his head and moved away. "I'm not sure if I can do it. I don't know if I can look at you the same way after hearing this." The words wounded deeper than Remy had expected, causing him to reach out and grab Deke before he slipped away. But he remained motionless, allowing the silence between them to be weighed down by all they were not saying. "I'm sorry," Remy murmured quietly. "I should have told you earlier. I didn't want to lose you." Deke did not answer immediately. He stood beside the window, back to Remy, with the city lights reflecting in his eyes. When he finally spoke, his tone was low and uncertain. "I need time, Remy. This is a lot. I'm not sure what to do with this." Remy nodded, but Deke couldn't see it. "I understand it. Take as much time as you need. I'm not going anywhere." Deke turned, his expression unreadable. "You're my brother," he murmured, testing the phrase as if it were new and unfamiliar. "That's going to take some getting used to." Remy forced a little smile, which seemed frail.
"Yeah,
"For me, too." They stood there, separated by a few feet but feeling worlds apart, the weight of their common history descending over them. Outside, the city buzzed on, indifferent to the silent collapse of two lives bound together by a secret neither had chosen. Remy had no idea what would happen next, if Deke would forgive him, or how they would deal with this new reality. But for the first time in years, the truth was revealed, and that was sufficient.
for now."
The following days were filled with awkward silences and half-hearted attempts at normalcy. Remy immersed himself in his work, staying late at the office and filling his days with spreadsheets and emails to avoid the emptiness of his apartment, where Deke's absence was palpable. Deke, for his part, texted a couple short, clipped messages that he was all right and simply wanted space. Remy clung to those texts like lifelines, reading them repeatedly in search of an indication of what might happen next. He also thought of their father, a man whose shadow had loomed over both of their lives without their knowledge. Remy had only met him once, in a brief, uncomfortable discussion at a Chicago diner that smelled of grease and nostalgia. The man appeared older than Remy imagined, with graying hair around the temples and rough hands from years of physical labor. He had spoken slowly, as if he was frightened of expressing too much, but when he named Deke, his eyes brightened up. Remy had no idea how to react to that. Jealousy, bitterness, or something softer he couldn't define. He pondered what Deke would do if they met. Will he see the same shattered guy Remy saw, or will he see something different? Something worth saving? Remy lacked answers, but he couldn't stop turning the questions over in his mind, like stones smoothed by a river stream. A week later, Deke arrived to Remy's flat unannounced, his hands put in his pockets, and his look guarded, but not hostile. Remy welcomed him in without saying anything, and they sat on the same couch where Remy dropped the bombshell that altered everything. The silence was heavy, but not as oppressive as previously. "I've been thinking," Deke admitted finally, his voice low. "About what you said. About him. About us." Remy nodded, scared to speak, terrified to sever the frail thread that was holding this moment together. "I'm not ready to meet him," Deke explained, his gaze locked on the floor. "I'm not sure if I will ever be."
"But you are still you."
"And I don't want to lose that either." Remy's throat clenched, relief and optimism rushing through him in equal measure. "Do you mean that?" Deke looked up, a slight smile forming on his lips.
"Yeah."
"You are a pain in the ass, but you are also mine. Brother or not?" Remy laughed, breaking the tension like a breach in a frozen lake. "Fair enough." They didn't mention their father again that night. Instead, they ordered pizza, watched a crappy action movie, and let the comfort of their relationship replace the void left by the truth. It wasn't ideal, nor was it the end of the story. But it was a start, a step towards something new, something they create together, piece by piece, as brothers, buddies, or whatever they needed to be. The city outside continued to move at a breakneck rate, but Remy felt able to breathe for the first time in a long time inside. The secret was out, yet the world had not ended. Not yet. Remy's adventure begins with an internal battle. For years, he's kept a secret that shapes his sense of self. The knowing of his biological father has been both a burden and a shelter. It shields others from pain while keeping him emotionally trapped. His resolve to ultimately expose the truth represents courage and transformation. It represents his transition from a passive participant in the lives of others to a person eager to accept responsibility for his own tale. When he decides to talk, he takes charge of his story, preferring authenticity to the comfort of silence. This is the pivotal moment in his emotional enlightenment, when he recognizes that freedom and pain are frequently inextricably linked. The impact on Deke is similarly significant. Deke most certainly lived his life under assumptions that now crumble in an instant. To be told that the son he thought he knew is not his, or that he is a father to someone he never claimed, shakes the core of his identity. In The Bold and the Beautiful, paternal characters frequently represent stability, pride, and control. When those traits are tested, they disintegrate, revealing weakness and fear. The emotional tone of the story is defined by Deke's reaction, which might range from wrath to confusion or sympathy. The shock of betrayal may cause him to withdraw or lash out, but underneath the turbulence is the opportunity of forgiveness and rejuvenation. Through him, the show explores the fragility of trust and the tenacity of love. For many years, the series has used parental secrets as metaphors for truth and deception. From Rich Forrester's paternity disclosures to the intertwined history of the Logan and Spencer families, these episodes explore themes of identity and power. Remy's confession falls squarely within this tradition. A secret kept for too long becomes a weapon. When revealed, it destabilizes the environment around it. Soap operas thrive on this tension, not because of the shock, but because of how the truth affects relationships. The discovery challenges each character involved to reconsider who they are and what loyalty entails. It informs the audience that the act of discovering the truth is both damaging and redeeming. The topic of dad permeates every element of the novel. The phrase, "he's my father," conveys emotional richness that goes beyond biology. It is a recognition of connection, but also of duty and loss. Deke's position in Remy's life, whether as his father or as the guy who raised him, prompts thought on what it truly means to be a parent. Is it blood, or does it represent the daily acts of love, sacrifice, and guidance? The show uses this opportunity to challenge traditional notions of masculinity. Fatherhood in this context is defined by vulnerability, the desire to forgive, nurture, and see oneself honestly in the eyes of another. The revelation forces Remy to confront his own masculine identity. Naming his father means understanding oneself. Every truth in The Bold and the Beautiful entails an ethical issue. Remy's decision to divulge his secret begs the question of whether honesty is always correct. He understands that telling the truth will cause suffering, but remaining silent would perpetuate a cycle of deception. In this sense, the narrative becomes an investigation into moral courage. The confession is more than just an act of exposure. It is a statement of faith that healing is impossible without truth. Soap operas frequently exist between good intentions and unexpected harm, and Remy's struggle exemplifies that moral ambiguity. His honesty may end relationships, but it also contains the hope of regeneration. The consequences reach beyond Remy and Deke. Others in their orbit, such as Remy's mother or close friends, are caught up in the consequences. The mother role, in particular, becomes a focal point for moral reflection. Why was the truth hidden? Was it to shield Remy from embarrassment, or to shield herself from repercussions? Her acts, although well-intentioned, become a sort of control, depriving both men of their right to the truth. Once the secret is revealed, alliances alter. Friends and family choose sides. Trust crumbles. The personal becomes political, and the domestic becomes a stage for power battles that reflect the show's overarching themes: love as currency, loyalty as weapon, and truth as emancipation. In situations like this, emotional reality is essential. The impact is determined by how the words are expressed rather than the words themselves. The quiet preceding Remy's confession, the trembling in his voice, the emotion on Deke's face, these are the aspects that make the scene credible. The best sequences from Bold and Beautiful strike a mix between heightened drama and real sensitivity. Even in the midst of luxury, beauty, and glitter, the character's pain feels personal and genuine. When handled effectively, such a scene can convey something universal: the dread of being rejected for expressing the truth, as well as the optimism that love will survive.